Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Doc White here, your host of the Conservative Underground. Welcome to this broadcast. Big news to start the program off. It is with great excitement that I announce that the Conservative Underground has returned to the Red State Talk Radio Network. Whoa. Well, while we may be new to Red State Talk Radio, we are not new to technical malfunctions. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's try this one more time. It is with great excitement that I announce that the Conservative Underground has returned to the Red State Talk Radio Network. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As many of you know, this broadcast originated from as an independent podcast and then was picked up in the inaugural year of Red State Talk Radio over at redstatetalkradio.com. We parted ways late last year, and it's happy to announce, as I said, we are back on board for 2014 with this broadcast. And for those of you who have tuned into that network and may not be familiar with the broadcast, I'd like to introduce to you all my Chief of Staff, Brett Myers. Thank you very much. My Social Media Coordinator, Mitch Wainwright. Our Technical Director, Technician, Sid Nelson. Dr. Beth Lookner is our Research Analyst Specialist. And our intern, Maggie Montague. Is that right? Maggie Montague. Thank you very much. Let's get the show started. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I just had a couple of things to get off my chest here today to start the broadcast off. Somebody over at Google really screwed the pooch big time last week. I have this story here from the Associated Press. From Berlin, AP, Associated Press. Apparently, somebody over at Google mislabeled an German intersection in the city of Berlin. Apparently, Google was updating their maps, the Google Maps. Very interesting, by the way, to zoom in on certain parts of the country, especially along the border region of the United States and Mexico. Well, Google spokeswoman Lena Wagner said last week that the company quickly took down the name of a mislabeled Berlin intersection. Now get a load out of this. The intersection should have been named Theodor Hess Platz after West Germany's first post-World War II president. But it was mistakenly named after its Nazi-era honoree Adolf Hitler Platz. That was posted on Google Maps services. Can you believe that? Somebody royally screwed the pooch over at Google. I don't know how something like this happens. How could you not know that would be incorrect? You almost think it was on purpose. Maybe some guy was going to quit and decided to go out in a blaze of glory. You know the stories of people walking out of their employment. Could be a joke gone awry. Who knows? But Google has apologized for that, as they should have. I don't know what goes through somebody's mind. You know, also today, ladies and gentlemen, I had that is the royal screw-up, by the way, of your career to do something like that. I was having a conversation with some young people over the weekend, and I came across actually a nice, professional, and uplifting website by listening to the Jimmy Z Show called JuniorFactorNation.com. You should check it out. This is a internet-based podcasting station that solely houses young high school, college-age conservatives, and they do their podcasts much better than mine, and I'm a lot older than they are. But I wasn't talking to anyone from that network. I just came across that. But I was talking with some young people, and it is amazing, ladies and gentlemen, the study habits and the daily lives of your average college student. If you took out the getting drunk or trying to get laid, I'm not sure that college students would do much of anything throughout a day outside of, maybe eat. Not a lot of time is spent going to class, but getting drunk and getting laid seem to be the two priorities for college. And, maybe it's been like that for a long period of time. That tends to be what you do afterwards. But some of the things that I've learned over the years, here's how I should have approached college. What is college about? It is about prepping for the real world. And what's the real world? 35 to 40 years of your life is going to be about going to work Monday through Friday, if you're lucky and not caught up in the Obama malaise. That's actually the right word. Having a little bit of technical difficulties here, ladies and gentlemen, but we're making it happen. If you don't get caught up in the Obama malaise, luckily for 35 to 40 years, you will be working Monday through Friday. And my advice to college students out there, approach your collegiate career in much the same fashion. Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and a 1-hour lunch break in between. Concentrate on your schooling. Concentrate, if you have to work during that time, treat it as like a meeting at work. We work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the real world, minus a 1-hour lunch. And during that time, you have your work responsibilities and other meeting responsibilities to work on other projects. That would be like work or school, what have you. And some days you have to work late. Some days in college, you got to do the night shift. But your whole day should be structured as if you're working. This idea of having an 11 a.m. class and not rolling out of bed until 10:30 and not taking a shower and not putting on clothes, I understand that's the college mentality. I did it myself. But when I began to think about college as work and putting priorities down on a piece of paper, things naturally came to me a lot easier. I was more prepared. I didn't have to drink Coca-Cola loaded with coffee, chocolate syrup, and laced with Red Bull to stay up all night to study for an exam. Or I didn't have to work through a Saturday and Sunday weekend to get a paper done that I put off for 2 weeks. My best advice to the young people out there, and again, I started thinking about this and talking with some people over the weekend and also seeing this website, Junior Factor Nation, kind of got me thinking about my youth. And when I used to talk into a radio and record myself on a cassette tape about doing podcasts and in a conservative style. And I started thinking about my college career and those kinds of things. That's the best advice I could give people. The other thing I want to do is if you have a story, the last week, ladies and gentlemen, the last week had seen some pretty record colds. What did they call it? I'm looking over at my research director, Dr. Beth Lookner. This was called a polar vortex, I believe, that came down from the North Pole and whipped around some pretty severe wind and cold and chilling temperatures. And it sort of put the whole global warming, climate change debate into a new light when you're standing outside and the spit is freezing to your lower lip in the matter of seconds. Somebody also was funny in my neighborhood here. They decided to boil some water and toss it outside in the cold, and it just totally and completely froze instantaneously. That was kind of cool to see that. When it's minus 12 degrees on the thermostat and 40 degrees wind chill, there's some pretty funny things that Mother Nature likes to do. But I wanted to hear your stories about frozen pipes, frozen water pipes, radiator pipes, whatever the case may be. If you've had to experience that, why don't you send me a quick story at conservativeunderground1776@gmail.com. Shoot me an email and let me know how that worked out for you. I've heard some stories in my neighborhood here at Broadcast Park over some folks who had their pipes blow up and caused some serious issues. Now, last year when it wasn't as cold, this happened to a friend of mine, and they were displaced for about 8 months before the house could get fixed. I don't know what more helpless feeling you could have to come home and see water running out of walls, flooding the living room, flooding whatever rooms in your house, basements, bathrooms, and to have all this happen in, 5-degree temperatures. What more helpless feeling could it be? So, and if you have any advice over what people should do if a situation like this would arise, send it to me, because I think these are sort of home improvement things that would be helpful to a lot of people to hear, and to hear other people's stories, and who to call and when to call them and what to expect. I'd like to hear your story, your pipe break stories of winters past. This happens a lot of time in the South as well. And finally, one other thing that I wanted to get off my chest here before we start into some major topics. I follow on Twitter Farrah Abraham. Now, for those of you out there, you may not know who Farrah Abraham is. She there was this MTV show that was on, 3 or 4 years ago now, called My Teen Pregnancy. And it highlighted the lives of several teenagers, 15, 16, 17 years old, who got themselves pregnant. And in many cases, the people involved were of low income, and they already were living challenging lives, and now they are pregnant, and their lives become even more challenged. The good news about it, and what was surprising since it aired on MTV, is none of the students decided to get an abortion, or the young people, the teenagers, decided to get an abortion. These were all stories of carrying babies to term, and none of them were homosexual. That was interesting as well. There were no gay teen pregnancies, and this was a traditional man-woman kind of thing. Unfortunately, that's where the good news ends. And many of these cases, the mother and the father had strained relationships. Drugs were involved. There were issues with parents. Well, Farrah Abraham was one of the girls that was on this show. And let me just say, just because you get pregnant at a teenager doesn't make you a bad person. Just because something like that happens to you doesn't mean that your life is over. Doesn't mean that you're doomed for failure. The show overall was, I thought, very good, despite the fact that it aired on MTV. There was one teenage couple who just came from a horrible background. Bad parents. Parents were druggies. Just a very bad situation. And they agreed to give the baby up for adoption to a better home. And the baby did, in fact, go to a better home. And one of the more powerful moments I've ever seen on television was that moment where the teenage girl delivered the baby, and they take the baby literally from the mother and whisk them out of the room. There was no chance for any sort of bonding or anything like that. And I became emotional during that, and I could only imagine what that was like for the people involved. But the powerful lesson there was, these were adults. These were children making adult decisions. And Farrah Abraham was a part of this. And she became pregnant at a young age, 17 years old or whatever. Her the father of the baby, obviously they weren't married, and many of these people aren't married, which is another problem, in and of itself. Just how we look at life and look at sex and all of that stuff. And her the father of her child, I believe, actually died in some sort of automobile accident or military exercise accident or something. So it wasn't like she was just being an irresponsible person to the extent that we think of irresponsible teen pregnancies occurring. But she had some challenges as well with her parents and family, and I follow her on Twitter, and she's had a lot of plastic surgery, and it makes it a lot easier to follow on Twitter. But one of her tweets that came up recently kind of troubled me, where she said that reality TV